Jean Valgartson from Northern Lights College. And not surprising, I've spent my career as an educator. So my question is, what do you need from the post-secondary system in order to build the human resources for clean tech?
Would you like me to start? I'm actually the government that funds these organizations, Jonathan, so I'm thinking that might be better coming from you.
I'm thinking carefully here. That's a great question. And I think, so if I think about our idea of a cluster, which is a pretty broad definition, and you think about British Columbia, you think about we've got one of the principles behind building a cluster and how we're thinking about it is that we need to solve our own problems as well. And so we've got aggressive goals on carbon reduction. We've got aggressive goals in terms of clean power development. So we're going to have lots of wind turbines up in Northeast BC. We've got Rinna River projects. We've got biomass projects. And so that entire value chain of delivering, assembling, servicing, and operating those types of installations, I think, are going to be quite important. In terms of the tech sector itself, the tech sector, as tech companies, we need engineers, we need technicians. We have in our company, we've got dozens of designers and service personnel and engineers of all type and color and size. What we do lack in British Columbia, though, is that I think we're going to have to bring some coaching in. You may have the same problem in Quebec, is really we don't have the kind of sales, marketing, business development. A lot of the commercial skills are not as mature in our market as they are in, say, a market like California. So those are some gaps that we see.
Jean, I'll follow up on that, and certainly, a little different. I mean, Northern Lights College has a history. I have a history, my family. My father was an instructor going back a few decades now. He was a welding instructor at the vocational school. It turned to Northern Lights College. I have a brother who is a welder who followed in my father's footsteps and is now the dean at the college. But the most important thing that I think, or equally as important, what you can do, is thinking outside the box like you are. I think even 3 or 4 years ago, I live in Dawson Creek. I think if we were to talk about a clean energy college and building on that brand at Northern Lights College, people would have raised an eyebrow and said, well, we're carpenters, we're welders, we're pipe fitters, and yes, we're all of that, but the innovation and the progressive way that you've approached this, I think is key, whether it's Northern Lights College or anywhere.
And I just want to add to that because our company is about 60 people, but we employ hundreds of people across British Columbia through our supply chain. And they are in fabrication shops in rural British Columbia, for example, where the shops have had to learn how to make gasifiers to be shipped to the US or somewhere other market, where a few years ago they were making fuel storage bins for sawmills. And so they've had to buy and adapt new equipment and learn new standards, and so there's been so I think Minister's made a great point. Thinking outside the box and looking at where some of these trends are going, and actually coming down and talking to some of the companies is probably not a bad idea.
Exactly what I was happening to say, because think outside the box. It's easy to say, it's difficult to do. And you do that with people. And people in college in Quebec, they were telling me, hey, can we join our forces and have those major industrial companies at the table and to share ideas, because you have to adapt the education, the training, in order to be adequate for the business, for the sector. So one thing is think outside the box, having around you a lot of people having crazy ideas, and that's something very useful normally.
I think we have to be realistic, though. Most of the manufacturing ultimately is going to be done in other places with cheaper labor rates than here. And so our economy is going to thrive by a continuing investment in a knowledge-based economy, which is just, you know, continued focus on innovation. And I know that, and we also need to, I think we need to incubate more entrepreneurs. You know, the Sauder School of Business, for example, has really started to take entrepreneurship very seriously in the last few years. And we need to train people and send people, as Denny says, out into the world and have them learn and come back. And we can't do it all. We can't be insular. I mean, it's a global market. And send them to Quebec. Yeah,
Here we got another question.
Right.
Shauna Sylvester from Simon Fraser University. Each of you have talked about the importance of government, interestingly, regional or provincial or municipal. So given, Jonathan, this is an export-based initiatives, that where is the role of the federal government? Is it relevant? And if it is it useful at this stage in your development? If it's not useful, what are the 2 or 3 things that you want to see the federal government doing at this stage to promote clean tech?
You have half an hour to answer this.
Want to take a stab at that?
Yeah, but I'm at the early stage right now of the cluster. So right now I'm having conversation with the government in terms of my funding. But also, that being said, we talked about policies. We talked about government need to show the path. It's not only for local and regional and provincial governments, it's also federal governments. Unfortunately, I cannot pinpoint the 3 things that they should be doing, but after a couple of beers, I'm going to come back with 10 things, for sure.
I can take you up on that. So the federal government plays an incredibly important role. And I mean, they played a huge role in our cluster. And I'll give you some very tangible examples. The National Research Council's IRAP program in British Columbia funds a huge portion of researching in clean tech. And they've funded many, many companies, from our biofuels companies to our fuel cells to our solar companies, virtually across the board. And what they do is they provide grants when you're just getting started, and you need to leverage every penny of equity to do your research. The NRCan, our equivalent of the Department of Energy in British Columbia, has provided grant funding for that has leveraged some of the provincial funding for demonstration projects and pilots. The federal government put $1 billion into Sustainable Development Technology Canada. And I think it's one of the most successful examples of a not-for-profit but federally funded organization that has provided tremendous leverage. British Columbia clean tech companies have, I think it's close to $200 million worth of funding from SDTC, which has been leveraged with the ICE fund and private equity, up over $300 to $400 million in terms of total projects. And 35 companies in BC have been beneficiaries of that. So the federal government plays a really important role. Would we like to see them do more? Absolutely. We'd love to see them take and make clean tech more of a priority. And certainly in the US, investment tax credits, production tax credits. In the deployment of technology, it's all about capital. It's all about being a competitive place for capital. And some of the programs and some of the stimulus programs in other places have made those jurisdictions a more competitive place for capital to go. So we'd like to see the federal government do a little bit more in that area.
Great.
You want to take a stab at that?
Well, I think you've covered mostly everything. And the reality is, I mean, obviously, the more opportunity there is for dollars to be invested, whether that be in innovative new technologies, whether it be in training, that's always beneficial. Policy development, you know, renewable fuel standards, what is required in the fuels across our country. We have the federal government working on that. We have different provinces that are working as well in collaboration. That helps innovate and develop new technologies to create that. But at the end of the day, you know, what we do as governments, and I'll speak to the federal government, it does cost money, right? So they try and find that balance. Now, if it's a policy change, many times it may not be a direct cost to the government, and I'll speak in this case to the federal government, but there is cost associated, for instance, with the renewable fuel content, if we put a price to it. But it isn't just a price on dollars, because I'm always cognizant of the fact that if the cost is here, we have to realize the benefit here. And that's what we get from the clean tech sector. Yes, there is significant investment on the front end to develop these technologies, especially new emerging ones. But as they become to a commercially viable state, the benefit to you and I is significant. That's finding that balance. And if I had to, you know, name something for government, and that includes ours at any level, the ability to realize that there may be a cost on the front end, but your benefit far outweighs that cost on the back end. If you don't make this, your cost here can many times be much higher. So.
Great. Well, I think it's about that time where we all need to join Jonathan's Clean Tech Cluster Collaboration Drinking Club. So we'll wrap it up here, and Denny will continue to work on our letter to you,
great.
providing advice.
Don't forget the check.
And I think the last point was very important, that the government can offer things that are more valuable than money, so not necessarily a check. But I did want to thank you in the audience and thank our panel for a great session. Thank you.